What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to the Muffed Podcast. My name is Boaz, and as always, I'm joined by Lamitr and Aaron. And today we got a special guest, winner of the Shaded Tournament for Best Fantasy Football Analyst, the 49th seed, for our San Francisco 49ers. We're joined by Smitty. Hey, Smitty, how are you doing? So, Smitty, how have you been during this quarantine and all that? You been good?
Yeah. I mean, for me, I live a quarantine life to begin with, so nothing's like changed for me directly. It's all been indirectly. It's been everybody's been in the house. It's been that things are not the same, even though they're the same. And I honestly I get out 2 or 3 times a day to go get food, shop, whatever. So like it does change, my ability to I feel cooped up still. I try and get out, run a lot, exercise, get the blood flowing. That'll release any anxiety you got going on.
Yeah.
But past that, it's been more of an indirect impact to me.
I don't want to, this is no offense whatsoever, but I was so last night I was watching, I was listening to your podcast, doing a little bit of research before you came on. And I do a little bit, especially when August comes around, when fantasy football season started. I listen to a little bit of Matthew Berry. I'll check out ESPN. I'll check out Yahoo. All those, all those websites, stuff like that. And every time, there's just all these stats thrown around. It's like, oh, 4th in PPR, 5th in standard leagues. This guy's gonna be good. This guy's gonna be bad, and stuff like that. My question for you is, this could be a little bit silly because you could tell me that's totally wrong. But have you ever forgotten a stat and just been like, I'll throw out a number because nobody's fucking researching that. No one's gonna double check. You can throw out like this guy's 6th, and I don't know. I'm not gonna Google that or anything like that.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. Normally, when I forget a stat, I don't just make one up, though.
I got it.
But I'll say, something happens all the time because I don't script anything really, honestly. Like even coming on here, you guys didn't get an email from me like, what are we talking about? Like, I don't care. Like,
putting you on the spot.
I do so many of these that it really doesn't matter. Like, and when I go live on YouTube, I don't script a thing. I just go live. So there are plenty of times where I don't have time for that. I do like a video a day on YouTube. Like I can't map things out. And you get smoother at it. You get comfortable with it. And there's times where I don't know something and be like, God, I forget that stat. Like the other day I was talking about Njoku. Njoku, who is a tight end that's in the trade, in news right now for being potentially traded to New England or traded to Dallas. There's a stat I couldn't remember. I still haven't looked it up yet. That was in 2018 and 2019. He was the fastest tight end in league history to get to a certain stat by the age of 22 or 23. I forget what the stat is, but he did it.
Yeah.
So I was doing a video and I'm like, he's the quickest. I don't know what it is, but I think he's the quickest to attain a certain number of receptions. Maybe it was, but people talk about Njoku being a slow evolving tight end, or he hasn't done anything, but he actually, up until last year, which was a nothing burger season for him, he was actually speeding along some stat. I believe it was receptions. So that stuff happens to me all the time. I don't care. And a lot of my stuff's improv. A lot of my stuff is like on the spot, real type fantasy talk, especially on Instagram, on my stories and stuff. So people understand that. It doesn't make you look less professional. As part of my deal, what I bring to the table. It's like a realistic look at sometimes my life, but my fantasy life, around my studio and what I'm doing. I'm creating a video behind the scenes, so to speak, and I'll record it. Like right now, I'm going to record some spots in this interview and put it on IG Live. I'll tag you guys. So I mean, honestly, there have been times, to answer your question, where I may have answered something wrong, and literally no one called it out. They're like,
I've been thinking that's like being a fantasy analyst got to be like one of the best jobs. It's kind of like you're like a news reporter. Like you could be wrong, like pretty much all of your takes could be wrong, and no one's really gonna blame you all that much. Like maybe you'll get a few ads to Twitter and stuff like that, but your credibility
Adam Rank
a little bit. That's true. But he's on a fantasy guy.
I mean, what you say is funny in some ways, and slightly true in other ways. But once you get to a certain level, you start getting the group of haters that will actually try and
That's
debunk
true.
everything you say. Or like for me, I'm a bold prediction artist, so to speak, and I've been doing that for 16 straight years. I've been doing it 16 straight years on CBS Sports Radio. So I'm on the longest running fantasy football radio show in the world. There's no one that has had a longer fantasy football radio show. It's 23 years running. I joined 6-7 years in, so it was actually running before I got on it. But I've been on it 16 straight years. I've been dropping bold prediction after bold prediction after bold prediction on that. That's where I launched my career. I wouldn't be doing well if I didn't land those, so like you're right. In some respects, it's fun because you can have a lot of freedom and flexibility and, but believe me, like your turnover from year to year of people not wanting to follow your advice you'd eventually fall off a cliff and become known as the guy that didn't have accurate information. So you're right in a small sense, but believe me, you got to be accurate if you want to grow.
I get that, yeah. So,
Yeah.
but I think I just segued. You kind of hooked me up there. We just segued into what we wanted to talk about. And when we were kind of just compiling a list of, we were like, what ideas, what segments could we do that could be kind of fun? The first one that kind of came to my head was to talk about some fantasy football players that like maybe the media or analysts have been, really high on, and then they turn out to just not do anything. And I mean, the first, literally, like when I was thinking about it, I was thinking of Matthew Berry, and I mean, how much he was pounding the table for Devontae Parker for how many years he's been doing that. And I've seen just. Lamitr, you're really gonna put that there?
I don't know about that one. I don't know about that one.
I have a really strong opinion. I know Lamitr and Aaron know about this. I mean, I refuse to. Like, Devontae Parker could become like the best receiver of all time, and I refuse to. I will never pick him up just because of how much anger I got from just picking him up. He is like, Mike Evans has this inconsistency problem where he'll score like 30 points one game, and the next game it could be like 3 points. Devontae Parker has that, but it's just like most of his games are 3-point games, and then the 1 30-point game will be the game I benched him. And it pissed me off so much, and that's to the point that I can't even look at Devontae Parker. I will never own him in any one of my fantasy leagues ever again. Lamitr, do you have anything like that?
I mean, everybody's got some bias, involved in their analysis. But so, I mean, and I admit it, I admit that there's going to be some of that, I think, littered into my takes. But the bottom line is, like, I feel like since I've done this for 16 years, I've gotten really, really good at taking out the bias. So a lot of people will think, oh my God, he's been talking about stay away from Leonard Fournette, which has been something I've talked about since January. And is there some inherent bias in there because I've predicted him to bust 2 years in a row? He did bust in 2018, like completely.
Yeah.
Just failed people, and they drafted him at number 7, number 8 overall. He lost a bunch of weight, which is a horrible idea for a bruiser like him that needs to take impact constantly. I was like, why is everybody high on him? And he busted. And then last year, I'm like, I'm still not sold on him, and he had a really good year. And so naturally, when I say he's going to bust again this year, it's people saying you're just mad because you're salty because, he proved you wrong last year. And honestly, there's probably a little bit of that you just can't. You're a human being. You're going to have a little bit of that mixed in. But I feel like I do a really good job over the 16 years of separating myself from that kind of bias. And if Leonard Fournette fell to a certain range, I'd be like, hey, man, I like him. And Parker's a perfect example because I've been stay away from Devontae Parker. He's a vanishing act for a long time. Hold on, though. Hold on. You're not going to like where I go. So stay away from him. He's a vanishing act. He's tied to Fitzpatrick. If Fitzpatrick goes down, he vanishes and falls off a cliff. But they got Tua. There's potential opportunity for a rapport to build there. And the more important point is Devontae Parker's fallen on ADP rankings. And as a good analyst, I'm not saying you aren't by this stance. I'm just saying as a good analyst, what I got to tell myself is that at what point does he cross that threshold of now becoming a value grab with very little risk? It's always risk versus reward. Parker right now at what is his ADP? It's sometimes in the 6th, 7th round, sometimes even later, depending on the pool of people you're drafting with. At that point, you're looking at like zero risk for a guy that could potentially drop low end wide receiver 1 numbers or high wide receiver 2 numbers for as long as he does it. So like in best ball, he's a great player to grab because if he falls off a cliff, doesn't hurt you. Your optimal lineup gets set for you. Best ball, he could be absolute, fire at 6-7 round range or wherever he's going. So I'm very good at adjusting. Parker's been a guy that I've been no, and now I'm like, actually, yes. I like
Well, see,
Parker.
I think that's the difference between you and I. You're a fantasy football analyst, and I'm just I'm a league loser.
Yeah.
I can't even. I can't. He's hurt me too much. I can't go back to him. It's like an abusive relationship between me and Devontae Parker. I just can't.
My equivalent to that is probably the Rams running back situation. I'll still draft Darrell Henderson at like 13, 12 round territory because he's falling there, and that's like literally zero risk at all. But do I trust them to use him properly? No. Do I think they're going to use Akers properly? No. I feel bad for everybody that's on the Akers train because they're exactly where I was last year with Darrell Henderson. They're just a year, it's just a year later. Like they think, oh, Akers is just going to be trusted and given the keys. No, this is the Rams. Like Malcolm Brown could start 16 straight games. You don't know. They could move Higbee to running back. You don't even know what's going to happen. The Rams cannot be trusted. And that's probably my I can't see clearly situation if I had to pick one where I'm just going to be against it because I think that they lie. That coaching staff won't be honest about what their plan is or agenda is for the running back situation. They said they're going to give Darrell Henderson 10, 12 touches a game. They didn't even come close to that. And for people that think he's washed up and done already and pulled the plug on the Darrell Henderson, the only reason I'm not high on him as much as I was is because of the situation. Like talent-wise, I will go to my grave that this guy in the right spot would have done well. And he still has a cracked open door and at that late double-digit round range. I'm still buying, but I'm not excited. I'm not expecting much from the Rams.
Smitty, what are your favorite hot takes and your favorite coldest takes? Like my personal ones are when I said on the podcast last year, there's proof that Joe Burrow is going to be one of the best quarterbacks in this year's draft. And my favorite hot take that went wrong was what's his name? Fantasy football counselor calling David Johnson on that David Johnson trade.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I kind of like his hot take this year. It's even better than the rest. That he said Tannehill's going to outscore Lamar Jackson. So,
what? Lamitr, you can relate. Jesus. You're a big Lamar Jackson hater.
That's probably that's the best one I've ever heard. That's my favorite cold take probably ever in history. I did like it. In the Throne. You guys followed the Throne League that I created on Instagram.
I look at it a little bit. Yeah.
So he took David before he got kicked out. He got kicked out this year because he blocked 1/4 of us. Let me put this on record. Joe, if you're watching, come back to me. We had a good thing going. He's a teddy bear. He really is. But he puffs up and I don't know why he got so mad at everybody, but he ended up blocking 1/4 of the league. And I'm like, look, you can't be in the league if you're blocking the commissioner in 1/4 of the league. And we're supposed to be a community driven league where we draft for those that don't know, the Throne League on Instagram is the biggest expert league probably in history, or at least on IG, where our followers draft our team for us. So we go to our entire following and get them to vote on every pick we make on a very slow draft where it's an 8-hour timer. So you're on the clock, you go to your people, you pull them. Well, he pulled his people and took David Johnson number 1 overall last year. And we're like, how on earth do you get, 1 or 2 people to agree with you on that, let alone, come on, thousands and thousands. So there's a lot of controversy about whether it was actually, his pick only or whatever. But I like Joe. I think he's very entertaining, and I love his cold and hot takes equally. My favorite, hot take. Are you talking about like one of mine or something I've heard? Like
one of yours too. Like mine was one of yours.
Well, I mean AJ Brown. I feel like that was a hot take, and now everyone and their mothers all over this one. Like I was talking about him in January being a top 5 wide receiver, and if you look back at my Instagram posts where I did that, it was like top 10 maybe, top 5 no. Like people just constantly like telling me no, you don't know what you're talking about. And then as these photos get released of him just sitting there, like it looked like he had swallowed DK Metcalf whole, and he's just sitting there on the field, and people are reposting this image over and over and over. Now everybody's like, oh yeah, he could be a top 5 to 7 wide receiver. That's my favorite one because I feel like early on watching the evolution of that, prediction has been fun because now it's pretty accepted. Still kind of bold to say top 5, but like people are like, I could see it. But that has evolved. That was not popular in January. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, I've said, is going to be a top 5 overall pick within 1 year, maybe 1.5. I think he finishes the year on fire. I don't care if he starts off slow or doesn't even get a carry in week 1. All rookies could be looking at that with the modified offseason that we're looking at. But
yeah,
I think he's going to be just an absolute monster at the NFL level. His ability to move left to right while he's still actually going forward is like, you just can't find a running back in the NFL now. And I can say that. Because I want to say that. People tell me you can't say that. He hasn't even played it down. I can say it. Especially when I'm on my show. I can say whatever I want. And Clyde Edwards-Helaire is the best left to right moving running back already in the NFL. There's no running back that even comes close to his ability to go left and right. And people are that want to jump to conclusions and say that this guy won't make it. He's too small. They don't know. They don't have all the facts because he was leaned on in the third and fourth quarter against some of the best defenses in the entire college football world over and over and over again, and made many people look like a fool that were drafted in the top 20 overall in the 2020 NFL draft from the defensive side of the football. This guy is proven as it can be at the college level. And he's walking and he's going from the best quarterback in college football to the best quarterback in pro football. And you could argue, we'll talk about Burrow in a second, I guess. I'm sure you guys will want to go there. He's also in the most spread out offense that caters to his left to right movement. So my prediction of Clyde Edwards-Helaire, I feel like it's obvious as hell. Like, I don't even understand how it's a hot take, but I love that it's a hot take. I love it. It's like, it doesn't even make sense that other people
makes you look
aren't.
good. Yeah,
it doesn't. Yeah, it doesn't. It's gonna be one of those ones like Adrian Peterson. You guys were probably all in diapers when this happened. But when I was in the industry in 2000, what was his rookie year? 2007, 2008. What was it?
It's somewhere around there. I think it was 7 because Alex Smith was 8, or Alex Smith was 06.
So it was 5. Alex was 05.
So Adrian Peterson's rookie year, he was a highly debated, believe it or not, he was a highly debated player coming out of college. Half the world hated him. They thought he was going to be a total bust. He had an upright running style. It wasn't going to translate. The other half loved him. But even the half that loved him was like, he's a top 20, 24 overall player heading into that year. And I said, this guy is not only a top 10 as a rookie, he's going to be top 5 within 1 calendar year. Actually, I think I moved it later on in the offseason. I moved it to number 1 overall. And it was such a hot take back then. It was like, you're reckless with this rookie running back talk. And, that was a hot take that ended up being, no one remembers it being a hot take at all. It's like you predict. I see on your testimonial, Smitty, someone said you predicted Adrian Peterson. Like, how is that a bold thing at all? Like, he's so obvious. So I have a feeling Clyde Edwards-Helaire will be remembered that way. Unfortunately for me, I'll try. I have a lot of video on it, a lot of screenshots, a lot of Instagram posts that show all the hate on it. So I have more evidence than I had, back then. I just have the story. So we'll see. But that's those are my 2 favorite hot takes.
But I think with Clyde Edwards-Helaire, it's almost like it's almost obvious. Like, to me, I think you're right that it should be more obvious because like Patrick Mahomes, he's the one who, apparently the story goes that he's the one who they texted him and he told him let's draft Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and then Andy Reid was like super high on him too. So like, I mean, if the coaching staff is in on him, it sounds like this isn't a Sean McVay situation where they're kind of lying. I feel like this might be real. Like, I think they really like this dude.
Yeah. So the story goes like this: Andy Reid was the GM of the Chiefs. Veach goes to Andy Reid and he says, I don't know if it's on a folded piece of paper. I like to envision it that way. He goes, Andy, check out this player. He's as good as Brian Westbrook, who Andy Reid recruited and brought into Philly and turned into one of the better fantasy running backs, for his time. And so, it hands him that piece of paper, let's say. And Andy Reid goes and watches film. I don't know why Andy Reid didn't know about him. I think he's so focused on pro football, he probably doesn't have time. Just like I don't have time for basketball. I used to love basketball. I was probably as good, if not better, at fantasy basketball advice than I was pro. There wasn't a market for it. I let it fade away. I don't even know. I can't even name, other than Aiden and Booker on the Suns on my team. I can't even name like 4 other players on the team anymore. I just don't have time. So Andy Reid probably doesn't have time for college football. He just doesn't. Not early on in the offseason. So he goes and watches film on Clyde Edwards-Helaire, comes back to Veach and says, he's not as good. He's better than Brian Westbrook. And Veach just like, I agree. So they just absolutely both love this guy. Then they text message in a group text Pat Mahomes 1 hour before the NFL draft kicks off. They didn't prep him. They didn't ask him. They never talked about Clyde Edwards-Helaire or even mentioned he's one of the guys we want. They just flat out randomly sent him a group message and said, what skill position do you want in this draft? And he said, Clyde. He just responded immediately, Clyde. And they laughed, and they're like, they even said he wouldn't have influenced the pick. He doesn't decide what happens. It's between the GM and Andy Reid. I'm sure they take his counsel, but they were laughing because they're all 3 thought this was the not only must-have player, but the best player in the NFL draft, like of all positions. And then Burrow, you want to talk about Burrow's support for him. Burrow has said that Clyde Edwards-Helaire is the best player he's ever been on a team with. And even though Burrow only had that 1 year, Burrow has actually played with a lot of people. He's been teammates with what's it? Pat Mahomes is over. Who said that?
Lamitr is a big hater. He's a Lamar Jackson hater. He's a Pat Mahomes hater.
Yeah, well, we can talk about that next.
Well, yeah, we will.
But foreshadowing. But Burrow's played with Zeke Elliott, Michael Thomas, both Bosa brothers, Chase Young. He's had a long string of elite teammates, and he said Clyde Edwards-Helaire is the best player out of all of them that he's ever played with. So there's so much support and reason to believe that this is not a McVay situation. This is even if there's noise about Damian getting starter work all year long, like who can make that determination in the offseason? Like, don't listen to somebody that tells you that Damian's going to get starter work all year long. Do you think a coach isn't going to adapt because that was said in a preseason interview or an offseason interview that Damian Williams is going to get starter touches? Like, it's just ridiculous when people hang on to something like that. It's because they want to root against a player. They have that bias we talk about. They can't separate. The bottom line is Clyde Edwards-Helaire's movements left to right, those micro movements where he literally – and I always give this example. I don't know if you guys know much about fighting, but if you're going to punch somebody in the face, you literally plan to punch them about 1 to 2 inches into the face. You don't plan to punch 4 or 5 inches into the face. You're going to totally misjudge your power. You don't want to punch an inch shorter. You won't hit them. It's literally like 2 inches so you can get into their face, right? Well, if you're going to – Muhammad Ali was the best at this. If you're going to dodge a punch, you literally – all you have to do is step back about 3 or 4 inches, and those 2 inches that were going to hit you miss. It's literally a 2-inch movement. And in cases where boxers are fighting and they go like this, they move their head like that, and the punch grazes them. That's what Clyde Edwards-Helaire does in the field. He has a micro movement that makes a defender just slip past him. And because he's got the low center of gravity, bowling ball type frame, you can't knock him over unless you get him on a direct hit, which literally is almost impossible with how shifty he is. And he just moves to the side as he's moving forward. It's unbelievable. Like, if you haven't watched his footage all the way through, go watch it and just and take specific notice to the way he'll move, and a defender will just roll right off him, and he doesn't get knocked off balance. It's Maurice Jones-Drew in the making. That's what Maurice Jones-Drew did. That's kind of what Ray Rice did. We haven't had a running back like either one of those guys in the NFL since they both kind of left the league. This is MJD 2.0. This is a top 5 overall pick.
And I think honestly, mostly is just players. People are down on him because he's kind of small. He's got a small frame, and we've been used to like the big fantasy stars. Saquon Barkley, Ezekiel Elliott. They kind of they're taller guys. They're not like that exactly like that MJD kind of more retro running back. I think that honestly adds to his shiftiness. The fact that he's kind of shorter is that he players are going to lose him. He's gonna get out of there. And yeah, I'm all with you. I'm a little upset at you that you're raising his ADP so much, because he was going to be, I was thinking maybe I can get him a little bit later, but now he's looking like a second round guy, maybe even a first round guy I have to get.
Yeah, and I may not be the biggest, like I have a long history in the industry. but my show, the fantasy football show, the video version of my content is literally still in its infancy. Like I'm a year and 5 months in. So my show is so I don't claim to have. I claim to still be the underdog, obviously. But my show's climbing. Everything's doing well. Like we're doing great. But even with a small underdog like following, I feel like nobody impacts ADP data like my community because we mock draft like mofos. We mock draft more than anybody. I mock draft all the time. And so it's funny because bigger analysts will say, you literally moved, and it didn't work last year, but Daryl Henderson's ADP up like 2 or 3 rounds in the entire industry, and so Clyde Edwards-Helaire, I have to think we have to, even if I wish you could measure it. I wish we could find out, was it 1 spot? Was it 3 spots? How much did my community, because of all the hyping I've been doing on Clyde Edwards-Helaire, actually move his real life ADP? I don't know. It's fun to think about it, but I think, I probably have affected it a little bit. That and AJ Brown's. So I apologize.
Those are 2 guys I both like. But I think let's just get into our final segment that we wanted to do. And you already mentioned you're big on hot takes, on kind of putting stuff out there. But on our podcast, it's kind of we become notorious, and I guess not even we. It's just Lamitr has become really notorious. And he's got these big hot takes. You already saw his Pat Mahomes take. I already told you Lamar Jackson. He doesn't like him very much either. But since you're here, we're gonna do some fantasy football hot takes, and we call this segment Lamitr Smokin Picks. And how this works is Lamitr's gonna say something. He's gonna tell us one of his takes. And he full-heartedly believes this. Like you're gonna be like, oh no, this is just for show. He believes everything he's gonna say, and it's between me, you, and Aaron, and we're just gonna decide if it's a crack take. And as just he's on crack. Like this is stupid. Like why is he saying this? Or it could be maybe a hot take where maybe there's a little bit of potential of that actually hitting. And then
certified hot take.
A certified hot take. And between between the 3 of us, we're gonna decide each one of his takes, and we'll see, is Lamitr full of crack, or is it some hot takes?
Okay, let's do it.
All right, Lamitr, you want to start?
Number 1, all right. Tyreek Hill is not even going to be a top 3 fantasy receiver in his division, and not even the best one on his team. I got Cortland Sutton and one of his teammates ahead of him.
Which one of his teammates?
It could be Sammy Watkins. It could be Mecole Hardman. It could be the tight end.
So is this an injury prediction though?
No injury. Like he'll play the entire season.
Okay, now you're smoking something. But yeah, I think if he were to get hurt, like if that was your prediction, I'd be like, you know what, this is a guy, or get into trouble because he's capable of
it's very possible.
Things. His collarbone, he came back way too early from that thing, and then I don't know if you guys remember that game where it was like, I think he was back that game or then the game after, he like went down hard and he was like rolling around like screaming.
Oh yeah.
And we're like, oh my god, he broke it again, and then he popped back up and he was back in the game. We're like, what the? This guy is capable of overdoing it. And his off the field antics, who knows, man? I mean, we're living in a different time now where something you did years ago on some video clip could literally take you out, so like who knows what's lingering, what he's got planned. Mecole Hardman's one of my favorite like deep wide receiver 3 grabs in 2020 where you start him as a wide receiver 3, he's gonna get fed a ton, and if Hill ever went down, Mecole Hardman would explode. So I don't think it's crazy from an injury and getting in trouble perspective, but if you think he's playing 16 games and not, I'm gonna say you're doing a little something.
I absolutely agree there.
Go ahead.
My bad.
No, go ahead.
So I absolutely agree there. Like Tyreek Hill's just too explosive. He's just too fast. Like we've seen like people like not be able to catch him. Like he gets a lot of touches from Patrick Mahomes too. And like just to say that he's not going to be top 3, like okay, maybe like if he's playing all the games, he's going to rack up yards. He's going to rack up touchdowns. So yeah, I just don't see him like not like exploding if he's playing all 16 games. So I definitely think you're smoking crack Lamitr on that one.
Well, the point that I think you guys didn't even touch is the other part that he said that Cortland Sutton would be over him. Like, I mean, I'm looking at the Denver offense, and I think they're trying to spread the ball out. They got Albert O. They got Jerry Jeudy. They got KJ Hamler. They got Melvin Gordon too. Like, I mean, there's just way too many mouths to feed to be like, oh, Cortland Sutton's gonna be better than Tyreek Hill, especially if he's healthy. Yeah, no, I'm gonna go. I think this is a unanimous crack take. I think you
gotta open your garage door for that one. let some of that smoke out.
All right, what's the next one?
All right. Next one. Okay. So we said that Tannehill is not going to be better than Lamar Jackson. I'll put that on record. So I'll add Tannehill to this prediction. Josh Allen, quarterback from what's it called? Buffalo Bills is going to be a top 5 fantasy quarterback, while Lamar Jackson will drop out of the top 10, and Tannehill will not even be in the top 20.
Tannehill won't be in the top 20?
Yeah.
I mean, you want to take this one?
Going either way with Tannehill, I don't care. Like that doesn't hotter. That's not hot or cold. You could say he's top 10 or not top 25. I feel like he could be argued. But Lamar, are you again predicting injury with Lamar?
No, entire season. No.
Wow.
He's never predicting injury. He's never predicting injury.
It's never going to be
that. I don't even know what to say on that one. Counselor? Are you thinking? Is this Joe? Honestly, man, I don't blame anybody for any bold takes and hot takes. Like, I mean, that a lot of the stuff I say sounds like that to people. So I'm like the last person that's going to judge you, but I think it probably is more reckless than not to suggest that a non-injured Lamar is going to fall off like that much. Like, if you want to say he's going to finish 2 or 3, or that Watson could outscore him, or Russell Wilson could, like, I get behind that. But man, he's in my opinion, Mahomes is a better draft pick than Lamar. He has less injury risk, even though Lamar, popped his kneecap. I get it. That injury, and I've had a doctor on my show. We've talked about that. The odds of that happening again are not likely. So we should be good on the knee. I think Lamar running 170 times a season is going to be a problem eventually. I'm going to assume that it won't be in 2020, and I'm going to put Mahomes at like 18 to 25 overall value, which I think is a steal. I don't care about these weight on a QB advocates out there. I'd take Mahomes or Lamar, both of them in the 18 to 25 range.
So how do you see Josh Allen? Like the second part of that.
Josh Allen, you're not going to have too much of an argument there for me. I think he was on my bold predictions last year as being one of the guys that would absolutely explode and be a top 5 quarterback heading into this year. Now, what's weird about that is I don't have him in my top 5 this year. He's more like on the 6 to 7 fringe, but my prediction last year said he would be walking in as a top 5 this year. So I'm kind of fighting against my own prediction now, but I think he's fully capable of it. I just think that by default, he falls out because you have Mahomes, you have Lamar, you have Kyler Murray, you have Watson, you have Russell Wilson. I mean, just by default, I feel like he has to be around 6 to 8 for me.
And Jimmy G.
No.
Oh my God.
No.
Yeah. So what's the verdict there, Smitty? Is this a crack take?
Yeah. I mean, sorry.
I think, yeah. I wouldn't even apologize to him. He gets so many. I mean, he has like a 90% crack take ratio.
Is the record bad?
It's bad. It is bad. He's honestly his ego was going down, and then it got really inflated because he told us that Rob Gronkowski was going to get signed, and we told him that was stupid. That's never going to happen. And then it kind of bit us in the ass, and it did happen. And now he's back at it, and he thinks he's yeah. So
maybe I'm just reading into this. Maybe what you need to stick to though is like the situational predictions. Like that didn't have to do with talent. That had to do with like you're predicting what a team was going to do. So maybe you know with 100% accuracy what's going to happen with Antonio Brown. Is he coming back? Is he not? I think you need to stick to those. You're like 100% on those. I think.
I made a terrible trade last year. Who did I trade away? I think I traded away Keenan Allen and another running back or a quarterback. Keenan Allen and a quarterback for Antonio Brown and Andrew Luck.
Oh my God!
Worst trade I've ever made in my life.
I remember that.
And I remember that day you were so confident too. You're like, "Oh no, Andrew Luck's coming back. I mean, he's going to be out for a few weeks. His football itch. He's going to come back. He's going to come back. And AB's it's a matter of time before the Patriots are going to pick him up. He's going to be he's going to be a top 5 receiver. None of that happened.
Yeah, Luck was hard to see though. I don't blame you too much on that one. That was kind of out of nowhere. There's a lot of people.
This was after Luck.
Oh,
after Luck retired. It gets great. It's not. Yeah.
Oh, open your garage, man.
You can try to rationalize it. I don't think there's no way to spin this to make it a rational decision to trade that. But yeah, I'm gonna. So Lamitr, I see the Josh Allen take because I think Josh Allen to me reminds me of what Cam Newton used to be, where or he has been the past couple of years where maybe isn't like you can't say he's like a top 5 quarterback, but he'll have a top 5 fantasy value just because he gets all the rushing yards and he gets a lot of passing yards as well. And Stephon Diggs is there, so I think that adds to it. So I can see maybe, but as well, it's really hard. I think there's got to be injury for one of those guys in the top 5 that Smitty mentioned. It has to be either Kyler Murray or Russell Wilson. I'm just going to mention those guys from the NFC West. It's my Niners bias.
Cam and Josh Allen together would be like a great best ball, duo, because I think Allen will drop top 5 numbers on occasion, but ultimately will fall out of top 5. So like Cam, same thing. Cam's gonna drop big numbers, but I think people are just way too quick to put him in their top 8. But he could drop like at the end of the year from like week 10 on. He could be like a top, set 5 quarterback, or top 6. Who knows? So those are good in best ball. But yeah.
Hey, Bill, didn't you say Cam Newton was not even going to be top 20?
I said Cam Newton was not a top. I didn't say he's a top 20 quarterback just in the NFL. I'm saying as a fantasy, he always gets fantasy points. So I'll say he's a top 15 fantasy quarterback, 1,000%. But top 20 quarterback.
Buzz was not happy on my Cam Newton prediction. I said Cam Newton was going to be a top 15 quarterback in the NFL this year, but I'm not putting him at like the top of other quarterbacks. But like, I'd put him at like the bottom, like probably like 15 at best. I still have faith in him.
12 to anywhere in 12 to 15 is totally realistic, I think. And like I said, in best ball, he will drop top 6, top 5 once in a while, and that's why best ball he's so great. But I think people are way too quick to put him like 7, 5, 8.
Yeah,
like
it's crazy.
Outside top 10, I'm okay with. I don't have them at 9 or 10 personally. I have them at like 12, 11, 13, something like that. But I think it's crazy going top 7. The guy hasn't played in a long time. He's still an injury worry, even though people say, "Oh, he's healthy now. He's the best." How do we know? How does anybody know? He's not taking a hit. And then on top of that, his weapons aren't near as good as the guys that people are willing to put him in front of. Look at Breeze. Look at Brady. Brady's got so many weapons. Look at A-Rod. A-Rod's still got a lot of weapons, and even though they're thin at wide receiver, they still got Adams and Aaron Jones, and he'll be fine. So I don't know how anybody has Cam ahead of those 3.
I agree, and I think with that, I'm just gonna give my final verdict. I agree with you, Smitty. I think Lamitr, you gotta go outside a little bit, maybe take a walk. And what do you think, Aaron?
He's a good sport.
I mean, I'm just gonna keep. I'm just gonna keep this quick because I basically agree with what's been said all around. Because I could potentially maybe see the Josh Allen thing, but because that's only because he gets like rushing yards on top of his passing yards. But to say like he's top 5, like I was kind of with you potentially, but then as soon as you said Lamar Jackson's out of the top 10, I disagreed. So yeah, I definitely think that's a crack take.
All right, Lamitr, do you have one more?
I mean, your name even starts LAM. Like, how are you not on Team Lamar?
I like watching him. I just think he's overrated.
That's a lie.
He's a hater. Yeah, he's a hater.
That's a lie. You do not like watching him.
He's entertaining. I'm not gonna lie. Like Lamar Jackson's an entertaining player. I just don't. I think he's overrated.
Do you want to tell him your take on Jimmy G, where he's going to be in the MVP standings next year?
Oh, Jimmy G, Marcus Mariota, and Russell Wilson will be top 3 quarterbacks.
Russell Wilson is the only one that makes sense.
Jimmy G, and who?
Marcus Mariota.
He thinks Mariota's going to start over Carr. He thinks.
I still don't think you actually believe that. Like, there's no way you can, you actually think that's.
No, I'm serious. Like, Marcus Mariota going to come in and going to have the Ryan Tannehill.
He actually believes all this. I used to think he's just speaking out of his ass, and it's now he keeps these takes. Like, he doesn't if he right now if he was shying away from it. If he was like, no, I don't want to talk about it. He's confident about all this. It's ridiculous.
So you think he's going to be top? Not only to start, but he's going to be top what?
3.
Top 3.
In the MVP voting.
Wow. If you're right on this, you're coming on my show and I'm doing a whole feature episode on you.
Yeah.
And this prediction. Like, I'm telling you're coming on and we're gonna talk about where your Gray's book sports almanac is from Back to the Future, that prediction book. I want to know where it is, where you're hiding it. And I want to be in on some of this money making action. I bet you Vegas doesn't even have his name in anything that you could bet on.
Definitely not.
No, Vegas probably does because he's playing at Vegas, right? So Vegas probably.
Nobody in the right mind would ever put money on Marcus Mariota starting. I think Lamitr, if you get that right, if Marcus Mariota even starts over Derek Carr, I'll even give it to you. Like I'll be like, Lamitr, I'm sorry for shitting on that, but I don't even see that happening.
I'll give him more than that. He's a featured spot on my show.
That's probably the worst take I think he's ever had. So that's like very like
that's
top
one of the top ones.
Take,
yeah,
so, so that doesn't
like
get any weirder than that.
It makes me happy. But I
think that makes us all happy.
You guys want to hear the last one?
Let's hear the last.
Yes.
All right. Joe Mixon is going to have more fantasy points than Ezekiel Elliott and Derrick Henry combined. Okay, so this one, one of them picks up an injury for like half the season. Let's just say one of them picks up an injury for half the season. So both of them combined play 24 games. Joe Mixon plays 16, and Joe Mixon will have a higher point total than both of them combined.
Yeah, Mixon for me is a avoid at first round value personally, because I mean he basically crapped the bed the first half of the year last year. And I know a lot of people are going to say that Burrow's an improvement and all that, but I think that there's going to be a lot of 8-man front. Similar start to last year is going to be waiting for Mixon, in my opinion. But I could be wrong. He ended up having a really good second half of the year. But anybody that drafted him really struggled to win last year because they literally lost their first, big chunk of their first half of their fantasy season. And then he turned it on and they're like, thanks, thanks for turning it on in the second half. I'm just kind of an avoid at first round value. But with every player, like I told you guys, I have a line in the sand where it's like Mixon can turn from avoid to go get. Lev Bell's kind of entered that range for me, although Lev Bell's been creeping up. Lev Bell was don't go near him. He plays for Adam Gase, and
the running back killer.
It's an awful situation. But if you look at a lot of the stats and consistency and yards after catch, like Bell was still pretty good last year. So in PPR, I kind of like him, depending on where you get him. But with Mixon, I don't see a line in the sand where I'm going to flip, because I think the line is very, very far away. He's at like 7 to 12 overall value, depending on who you draft with.
So what's the verdict on the take?
This one? I mean, this is like an outer space, man. Mariota, I love it. This one,
yeah.
I think if he opens that garage, you'll see stars. Like this guy is in outer space right now. But yeah, if you land this one, I honestly, you were coming on my show, and we are going to prognosticate the next year and map it out, and then we're going to take a Vegas trip and drop some money on
yes.
Because Mariota is a guy I didn't like for AJ Brown. I had AJ Brown as my number one ranked wide receiver coming out of college in January of his rookie year, and because of Marcus, I literally had to, once the landing spot was handed out, bump him down a couple of spots, and I regret doing that because I even said in my bump down article, like, we don't know what could happen at QB a year from now, half a year from now. Wide receivers tend to take a full year and a half to develop. So make sure you don't drop AJ Brown too much. I'm dropping him a spot or two, but I regret doing that because, situation changes like that. But he was the reason why that prediction, is my rookie prediction that kind of went like this, because I was so worried about that. I can't imagine him going and starting in 2020, but that'll be fun.
Hey, this is a guy who threw a pass to himself and scored a touchdown. That's why Marcus Mariota is going to be one of the best quarterbacks.
That's how you judge it, folks. That's
I don't know how that helps out. Yeah.
Does he get double fantasy points for that? Wait, does he get double fantasy points for that?
You get 2 TDs probably.
Get a reception. Yeah.
You could get 2 TDs, but
going off that logic, Nick Foles should be a top fantasy quarterback too, and then like. I don't know, man. I'm just
in the playoffs. I'd take Nick Foles.
Yeah, Lamitr, I'm just gonna, I'm gonna cut it short. There's not a whole lot. I think Smitty, put it very well.
I like the guy. I'm gonna leave it there. He's in outer space, and we like him, so we like him there.
Yeah.
All right, this is the last time I'm gonna put this up because I guess that's the verdict today.
It's not even a roach bomb. This wasn't surprising in any way. This is if you listened to the podcast at all. I mean, I think you know this already. And Lamitr, that was the last one you got, right?
Yeah.
Oh, thank God. All right. With that being said, thank you so much, Smitty, for coming on. Now, do you have anything you want to shout out? Maybe. First of all, I mean, I wanted to say, just guys, check out his show. Really entertaining guy, real fun guy, and he knows his fantasy stuff. And yeah, do you have anything you want to shout out?
Yeah, to sub to the Fantasy Football Show on YouTube, you can get there by going to smitty1.com. That's probably the easiest way to find it. But I'm on IG. I'm on Twitter. I don't know if you guys saw the Twitter thing that I had going on, which was crazy. It was probably one of the craziest things I've been involved in the last couple. You guys see it?
Yeah, it's like Adam Rank down.
Yeah. So in a nutshell, it was like a small Twitter poll. Who's your favorite analyst on Twitter? And obviously the bigger people were out of it, but there were some decent size, Twitter accounts, 15K, 20K, 10K.
Yeah.
And I haven't been active on Twitter in a while because I had been acquired about 4 years ago, and I wrote for a site. I was editor in chief, and I lost all my social handles because back then, this was 5 or 6 years ago. Then when I started those handles, they were all like business handles. Now everything's so much more personalized. Like, so when I branched back out and created Sleeper U about 4 years ago, I didn't have time to worry about social too much. I had to build up my content side, which is like my bread and butter or what I do. So I just started the Fantasy Football Show brand, which is all my social handles, a year and a half ago. So my Twitter's been just like non-existent. I haven't even really done much with it. So I go and there's this poll, and in the poll, I start making advancing. A lot of my following is very loyal, and I get to the Elite Eight. I'm going up against a writer from the Fantasy Footballers, and Adam Rank just like steps in and says, "Let's just move them along past Smitty." And so we had all that battle, and all three of the Fantasy Footballers, Adam Rank, were pushing and tweeting to get this person past me, and then I had Matthew Berry step in on my behalf, which helped a little bit initially, but that was just like to catch me back up. But then when Rank and the footballers started piling it on, I had to go to my fantasy football throne community, and we're stronger than people realize. We're 12 expert sites with a huge following, sum total, and we pushed them back, and we won that poll, which is really crazy. So I'm on Twitter now. If you want to follow me on Twitter, it's _Smitty show. But my main thing is YouTube on keep pointing the wrong way at thefantasyfootballshow.com. So and again, when that Mariota pick prediction comes right, you'll be coming on the show. So prepare for that.
Lamitr, I guess Aaron and I got to root for that. I guess we got to hope that Derek Carr gets benched. But yeah, with that being said, we'll see you guys next week. Peace.
Yeah.
I'm gonna leave that in.
Oh, no, I'm recording. I'm recording. No.
Fucking goofy ass motherfucker.